Hi, my name is Tony Tracy and I'm the president of the Pitch Factory. And this particular blog is about the importance of telling a story. I don't know if you've had this experience. I was at an event with several major companies attending, and there were several speeches taking place. And I remember hearing one particular presenter say, and lastly and most importantly, before rushing really to complete their speech and finishing their slot in the 7 minutes that they've been allowed to speak. And I remember thinking at the time, although I can't remember the point they were making, that what that expression does is tell you everything about speaking, or rather it tells you one key lesson that you need to learn when speaking, which is that if something is the most important, then it's not the last thing that you say, and it certainly isn't something that you rush through. So the thing to think about, I suppose, in this is the importance of storytelling to your audience and what that actually, what that means. The first step in writing a presentation is to think about what you want your audience to take away. And there's actually quite a big clue in the phrase, because what you expect if someone is going to take something away from a speech is that you've actually put those key messages in there in the first place, and more importantly made sure that you repeat the messages and people hear them enough to remember them when they leave. So the key for the first step, I think, in telling a story, in presenting, is to make it very clear in your own mind what are those key messages that you want people to take away, and make sure that they are points that you repeat a number of times. Now, some people have spoken to me about the rule of three, and this is the idea that when you speak, you always talk about a subject in three points. And if you're not familiar with this and you have access to UK television, then you can see that happen in Top Gear on every issue. The reality is, of course, that business is quite complicated, and certainly business issues can be quite complicated to explain in a presentation, and therefore you may not be able to stick to the rule of three if that's what you wanted to do. But certainly it is the case that you can or should try to keep the number of points that you're trying to get across to a short list of maybe 5 or 6, because people just won't remember a whole sequence of statements that you might want to make. I think the other thing to remember when speaking is around technical information. The capacity, if you like, or ability of an audience to take in lots of facts and figures and technical data and so on, it isn't great. And actually your speech, if all you do is rattle through the numbers, will actually be quite boring to listen to. So there is a point where you have to recognise when it's better to put the information down on paper, either to share at the meeting or to share afterwards, or link through to your website, where people can digest the real detail later on themselves. At the heart of presenting is storytelling, and speeches, like stories, have 3 parts. They have a beginning, a middle and an end. And the purpose of having a structure in a speech is to enable your audience to follow the argument that you're trying to get across, so that the various statements that you make and the things that you say link together in some kind of coherent way, so people get what it is that you're talking about. So the first step, if the first step in thinking about speaking is to identify what are the things you want your audience to take away, the next step is to prioritize those so that you're very clear which of them is the most important, which is what may well be repeated, and make sure that you structure your speech to allow adequate time to get each of those points across. So if the purpose, if you like, of the structure of the speech at the outset is is to set out the context and the themes, and at the end to summarise what are the key things you want your audience to take away. The meat or the major part of the speech inevitably is in the middle, which is when you cover the key points that you have identified and prioritised, making sure that people clearly understand what it is that you're trying to say and how these different points connect together in your story. So having done that, then the real rehearsal can begin. And this is a rehearsal which is around bringing that whole speech together, trying to get the timing right, trying to get the flow between one point and the next to be smooth and seamless. In other words, really to focus on what it's all about, which is telling your story.